given what's happened, what are you expecting from Melbourne this week?
And probably knowing Todd and played against Todd, I think he'll demand one thing off them, and that'll be about their approach at the football and the man. And he was a tough competitor, and I dare say he'll demand that from the playing group.
Are you expecting what you might term a backlash from last weekend's performance?
I dare say there'd be a real single focus for their team, and they'll probably approach it that way.
Is it harder to prepare for them this week now that they've got a new coach, maybe some new ideas? They might play a bit differently.
Being in that position yourself, it's something really hard to change. It's not like you can go in and start to implement different styles and things like that. You might change one or two things, but it is very, very hard to go in there and put a new game plan in and say we're going to do this, this and this. But what you can do is demand a couple of things, and I think Todd will definitely demand a real fierce approach at the football, which it probably was there, but maybe just a different voice might give a different result.
Did you sort of relate to him yesterday when he said his sort of head was still spinning and sort of getting his head around everything he had to do in the space of 4 days before a game?
Yeah, it's a bit like that. You sort of go from one position where you're trying to prepare for a line, and then you've actually got to look at it from a different point of view about preparing as the team as such. So it is like that. It's a great experience to go through, so I think he'll really appreciate what the coaches have gone through. So even if I didn't land this job, to be able to coach the group for 6 weeks would have been a great experience for me, and I dare say it'll be for Todd when he looks back after the season.
You imagine they'll start the game with a fair bit of emotion behind them. Is there a theme there to perhaps weather the storm particularly early? Because you imagine they'll come out with a point to prove or 7 points.
Yeah, I suppose it'll be one challenge for our group to make sure that we maintain our focus as well. They might have the direction they want to go with their football club and themes and things like that, but we have a lot to play for, and our expectations have lifted internally and probably externally. So we expect our focus not to change regardless if we're playing Melbourne or as we just played the Kangaroos and Essendon. It doesn't change for us, and that's something that we've had great consistency in the season. We've had a couple of waivers here and there, but we haven't dropped off, so we expect that from the group to stay the same.
Have you got some players coming from injury?
Yeah, Carrazzo ran today really well, so he'll be one that'll be talked about at match committee. Most of the injuries, the Armfield one where he rolled the ankle and things like that, he ran today, so it'll be more about how they pull up tomorrow, and we'll probably have to leave it from there until they come out and see how they go after the training loads.
What about Jared White?
Whitey'll be another week, so he won't play this week. Jamison won't play this week. Hampson was going really well, probably just a bit slower, so we thought he might play this week. It might be next week now, so yeah.
Did Kane play right in the VFL?
Yeah, not too bad. He was. He sort of had about 23. He was. It was a real step up. The week before, he only had 9 possessions or something like that. So it was a good step forward. His name will come under serious consideration. So he's one that sort of fluctuated a bit at VFL level and hadn't had that consistency. So to get him back in form will be really critical for us because he adds a lot of value and versatility to our group.
Is Jamison tracking as you'd expected, or is he a bit slower?
He's about right. Probably maybe a fraction slow, but I think everything's going pretty well. So yeah.
Just with those guys coming back, obviously there's only 5 or 6 weeks to go. Are you conscious of the fact that you might be running out of time to get the puzzle all together before final start, or are you confident you'll get your A team, up and going before first final?
Yeah, I think it's how quickly they come to hand will be the critical thing. Some players are a bit more clean-winded than others. Some players need more touch than others. So just depending when they come back and how quickly they grasp senior football again, because we know when a player comes from the VFL system and comes up the chain to play at AFL, there can be a little bit of a drop-off in. I know they might look a little bit out of place, but even their touch and decision-making, because of the pressure, can really expose them. So hopefully our boys come to hand really quickly.
When planning for this weekend's game, did you look at anything that Geelong did against Melbourne last week, or was that just a total freak result?
I suppose there's 2 aspects to really like about what Geelong did in the game. Don't worry about the score so much, but to go and have 500 possessions and have 91 tackles, I think it just shows, winning the ball or winning back the footy was outstanding. And to do that, I think that's a massive tick in their box because, to get 500 possessions is very hard to do, but to have 91 tackles, that's pretty hard to do as well. So I thought with and without the ball, they were fantastic as a team.
It's a long season, obviously. This one a bit longer than the last few. How about your younger guys sort of tracking, just in terms of legs getting towards the end of the year? Are they going well?
Yeah, I think they're going pretty well. I suppose the interesting ones have been the players that have been around a little bit, like Dygan and Laidler. That Laidler's been involved in the competition for a few years, but never been exposed to senior level week in, week out. And Dygan, coming from playing 22 games at SANFL level to play, virtually 22 at our level, I think it's a big ask. But I think we've had a real good strategy early, with Justin Cordy, our fitness high performance area there, and the coach is in about rotating the players. So Watson, I think, in one of his games played at senior level, played one game back at VFL level, and then had a break. So we've done that, I suppose, from the management side of things, done fairly well. Ideally, we've gone in with the sub and thinking about players, and we'll rotate him, and then someone else gets injured or there's a tightness. So we've had some plans in place that we haven't been able to implement. But overall, I think it's been pretty good, and our run looks really good in our games as well.
The bruised free footy has obviously been brought up again this week. I remember at the time you explained it was more a reference to the way your own team was playing. You have to remind them this week that you don't have to remind them at half time again about that sort of thing, like you had to in that game around 10. Yeah,
it was good. We, in that game last time, we pulled the vision up and sort of, is this acceptable? And it wasn't from our point of view. And so hopefully we don't have to remind the group at all. I think subconsciously they'll know that that was one that we had a drop off collectively in an area of the game that we've been pretty good. So I don't think we'll have to focus on it too much. I think it sort of been more ingrained now. That was 6-7 weeks ago, and we sort of haven't had to reflect on that during quarters or at half time.
Just to bring it back to, I suppose, what Todd might have, your very, when you walked into the box on your first game, what was your emotions when you take it over as the caretaker?
Yeah, I think it's always mixed emotions because one minute you've sat there, and been really supportive of the coach that's been there, and next minute you've been thrown the excitement of being able to drive the bus. So one minute you sort of feel very, have a lot of empathy about the person that's sat in that position and you've taken over, even though it's a caretaker's position. But on the flip side, there's a great emotion about enjoyment, about, geez, this will be a great experience for yourself to go through, and how are you going to handle it, and what are the things that you want to put in place. And there's no doubt that in that first 6 weeks, about I always think the quarter time and half time breaks go pretty quick anyway, even for a senior coach. But when I got down there, I just noticed that the first two, it was like Shane O'Sullivan tapping you, you got 2 minutes to go. 2 minutes to go. I'm ready, okay, let's go, and then trying to get, some simple messages to the group. It just sped up a lot quicker for you as a senior coach than as a line coach. Yeah.
Can you remember back to that week? I think you guys came off a 100+ point win. I lost the week before. Can you remember how tough it was to get the players up and just the mood of the playing group that week?
I suppose it was trying to just get the group together and maybe have a couple of simple messages. That was probably, and our obligation to our football club, and I suppose Todd will go down that path too. I think we lost to St Kilda by 10 points, so we sort of got the group to play together. We made a couple of changes from personnel, but it was more about trying to get the group to play for the club, and that's really important.
Where's Jordan Russell at? He's a couple of games in the VFL now. Is he nearing a return? Or? Yeah, he had a corky during the game that we have to have a look at to see where he's at. He actually played fairly well until that cork. The week before he was okay, and he had that week off with the soreness, general soreness. So, his name will be considered as well. Yeah.
Just the Phil Davis situation yesterday, from the point of view, the player announced it's going to GWS, and they say they haven't signed him. Is it leave a bad taste in people's mouth? Is it sort of an ugly situation?
Yeah, well, I suppose, I think it does. I think I don't think it's good why the players unless the player just removes himself from the football club and he's injured and he's not going to play. But it's starting to get into a tricky situation about players moving and what's your philosophy on it, and can they come in and poach a player from under your nose. They're interesting things, and I suppose there'll be some general discussions at the Coaches Association and probably and especially the Players Association, and the AFL will get a bit more feedback from them. And it's an interesting one how it all sits. I probably haven't thought about it a lot, but I wouldn't like that in our camp, really.
So almost create an environment of a bit of distrust.
Yeah.
I'm sure what the players thinking, have they signed, have they spoken?
Well, I sort of, been really privileged to be allowed to do this from the club's point of view, to go over to the EPL and have a look at soccer. And, there's a lot of, I suppose from the high performance sports science side of things, there's a lot of people from a lot of Australians who are involved in English soccer and the Premier League, which is outstanding for us as a country. But the biggest thing that I seen was about the distrust and how do you create the unity. And now that we're starting to get a little bit of that into AFL football, I think it's one thing that we don't have a lot of people that change clubs, and I know that's a new club that's involved, but that's one thing that's been great about our game. In comparison to, say, the EPL, they don't leave their club halfway through the year, they don't put their hand up. It's a lot more unity in the club itself here in Australia with the AFL system. So I'd hate us to sort of go down that path of, players have, play 2 years here and 2 years there and 4 years just because of the almighty dollar, and it becomes a real self-interest in I'm the business and I'll just get the best deal for myself. Well, it's a bit more about that, because when you finish football and life, money doesn't buy you success and premierships and that, mate. It's been involved in it myself, and having the premiership reunions. There's something special in life, and where do you put a price on that? You have your medallion, and people can give me 400,000 or 500,000 or whatever for that medallion. They're not having it. That's one thing in life that I can cherish as a person, and money can't buy that. So I hope we don't go down this path in the future and players are just, 2 years here or 4 years here, and you look at, I know players change clubs because of reasons and the clubs let them go. Well, that's fair enough to pursue their own career, but I think if it's all about the almighty dollar or things like that, I think it's quite sad.
Just quickly, do you tell your players that, or do you just basically leave that stuff to players and managers?
Players and managers. Players can have a feel for my view on certain things, and we sort of speak about things in life and things like that. So if I thought there was an issue with a player, I'd actually just sit down and speak about it. Would you leave for 20,000, 30,000? The opportunities at a football club to be a one-club player, those types of things is really important. And I think when you leave the game, players that have gone to other clubs and because of money or circumstances, that they wish they stayed at one club. And I'd hope that players really think money over opportunities at a football club, and I think you sort of really have to weigh that up, because money doesn't buy everything.
Do you think, obviously you're passionate about, do you think that culture will survive, or do you think it's sort of reached a point now with the new clubs and for AFC coming in?
It'll be really tested with the free agency that could come in and all that. That'll be really tested about loyalty and what the club can provide, and I suppose it's about what you believe in your own philosophies as a person, and I suppose that's about what your parents and yourself have done from an early age as a kid and things like that. So I'd hope players really go through and look at what they want out of life as well. It's not just about now, but it's about when they finish the game as well.
Does the same apply? I guess, from a player's point of view, you'd say the clubs, they think, I'm not, serving the team, it's pretty easy for a club to sort of say, we don't want you to discard a player, and then does it sort of count? Can you understand players seeing it that way and thinking, well, why should I be loyal to a club and a club can sort of ditch me out at any stage? Yeah,
I think it's really going to test the clubs and the players' relationship in, I suppose, talking a lot more and having that conversation in regards to, well, this might be an opportunity for you, and I think it might be a little bit more transparent from the club, not to say, oh, he'd be a great depth player, we'll keep him. It might be time for the clubs to maybe say, maybe we think you are only going to play 8 to 10 games or 12 games. It might be time for you to pursue something else. So I think it does go back the other way. There's no doubt about it, and it means players might leave football clubs, but I think it'll be just a lot more with the relationship and open dialogue, which should happen a lot more. And I think it's a great challenge for both the player managers and the clubs themselves to be really transparent on where they see the players' future going forward. And no doubt, if the players actually, been great to the club, and I think clubs will really look after the player long term as well. So I think it will come back down the track as well.